So post World War II, after World War II, what happened? Some historians say that the Cold War is just an extension of World War II. If you go away with anything from the next 4 days of lessons, it's what I have right here on this screen, that two major world superpowers emerge and pretty much have this ongoing tension due to their different opinions between democracy and communism for about 50 some years. You can see in the background that it's the United States and what was then called the USSR. Um, I think it was the United States of Soviet Russia, and you know it as Russia. So, big overarching idea for you to walk away with is the tension between the United States and Russia. These are some of the specific issues during the Cold War. So, as you know, the United States, we're a capitalist economy, a market economy. We do have some government intervention, but individuals are allowed to form their own businesses. Competition is allowed. Products are made based on demand. The Soviet Union, communism, a command economy, totally government controlled. Government decides what you will do for a living. Government decides whether or not you will go to like college after high school and what you would focus on in terms of your major. And the government decides that based on what they see in the needs for their economy. United States, of course, we have free will. You can grow up, you can be anything you want to be, you can go to college, you cannot go to college, you can do whatever job you want to do, you can be an entrepreneur and start your own business. Soviet Union, meh, can't happen. All needs of the government come before the individual. So, it's very much a government run area. So, United States, of course, we are a democratic country. We're a democracy. We have voting. You guys should remember we are a representative democracy, which means we vote for people to represent our voices in our government. And Soviet Union, with the communism, is more of a totalitarian government, dictatorship, one ruler, overall very military, involved, pride of the country, good of the country over good of the people. So the last line, obviously, under the United States, there's lots of freedoms. We have our freedom of religion, speech, press, our freedom to petition the government, our freedom to assemble. In the Soviet Union, no individual freedoms. So these are some of the big ticket items that were tension filled over those many years. The communism side is what the United States was trying to contain, to keep from spreading. And of course, the Soviet Union wanted it to spread. So there you go. All right. So the competition between these two countries spurs some inventions and fear. Some inventions we're going to look at is an arms race. Two, we're going to talk about a little bit of fear and fear again. And then three, the space race. Okay. So, excuse me, let me go back a second. This is some fear propaganda that I put on here. You can see, is this tomorrow, America and under communism? Our flag is burning because democracy is disappearing. We're also going to look at, with this arms race, some of the fear that arose in our country about surviving an atomic attack or a nuclear attack. All right, so here we go. The arms race. This was not a race of arms. Not see whose arms are better. Arms is a synonym for weapons. And so it's actually a competition, a race to see who can be first, who can be best, who can have the most weaponry. So the arms race was when the United States and the USSR wanted to build more and more powerful weapons. Just like other parts of the Cold War, it was a contest to see which superpower was the greatest. Because, if we had the most weapons and we did it first, then we were the greatest country. If the USSR had the most weapons and they were able to do it first, they were the greatest country, and neither country wanted the other one to be greater. And you see this timeline, 1945, when we exploded the atomic bomb, Japan, Hiroshima, 1949, So 4 years later, the USSR tests their first atomic bomb. And then that same year, we're testing a hydrogen bomb, an H bomb. So at that point, the United States is definitely ahead in this race. Now you see a chart from this arms race, 1945 to the year 2005. The first 10 years of this, of course, was a big time period. The nuclear arms race, I've already told you, is the rivalry between the Soviets and the Americans to make as many nuclear warheads, weaponry as they could during the Cold War and stock them up and have them as a threat against each other. So we had tens of thousands more than the Soviets for decades, if you look at the chart. So all the way through about 1975, up to 1975. We had tens of thousands of more nuclear weapons, and then you see this spike for Russia in 1975. And then something happens here, of course, in this decade, which we don't have time to look at right now, but hopefully maybe next year you can. So there is something that happens in the world politically, agreeingly, that you see both of them start to go down. But anyway, the big ticket for today is how many thousands of nuclear warheads both the United States and Russia had made and were holding on to and threats to use against each other. All right. So part of the fear. You know how we have fire drills and we have tornado drills? So when my parents were growing up and in school, they had nuclear bomb drills, and it was called duck and cover. And this is a picture that I pulled, from students who were going through a nuclear bomb drill. Could you imagine how you would feel growing up if every year, once a month, you had to do a nuclear bomb drill? Do you imagine you might be a little tense, might be a little fearful about the possibility of a nuclear attack? I don't think you guys really think that there's a possibility of a fire, even though we go out on a fire drill every month. I don't think you really think about it. Tornado drills, they tend to be more a pain than you really have a fear over tornadoes. Now, we have experienced some small tornadoes here in our area. So, and some schools have had some small fires in their kitchens where, students really have to leave, which is why we practice those drills for the just in case. So they were practicing this drill for just in case. It's hard for me to believe that they were going to survive a nuclear attack by ducking and covering under their desks. A lot of people built bomb shelters below ground as a way to hopefully survive it. So here's some more about the fear. So there was a lot of propaganda, going around in the United States. You see a book or a poster about if an atomic bomb falls, then what you should do. Here is a book that has been written, a hardcore history investigation of duck and cover, analyzing our fear of a nuclear war, and another image of that. This is a list of supposedly someone's opinion of the top 10 best movies to watch about fear of the Cold War time period. I highlighted one that I have actually seen. I think I've seen The Manchurian Candidate, this first one, but it's hard for me to remember. There are tons of movies that were invented or created, about this. So you can see what an issue it was. But here's a list if you want to go and watch any of these. Just a list of some movies that were also created around this topic of the Cold War and the possibility of nuclear wars. Okay, a second set of inventions, the space race. So we have the arms race, that competition to see who can be the quickest in building the best and the most nuclear warheads. So we also have the space race. This is a time period of a lot of spying on each other, espionage. And the thought, started with, if you can get out in space, you can spy on your enemies that way as well. So this kind of spurred the space race, which was also a competition between, these two big superpowers, the United States and the USSR, to explore outer space with artificial satellites, eventually to send humans into space and hopefully to land people on the moon. The space race lasted from 1957 to 1975. It was set off originally by the fact that the Soviets launched the first satellite in 1957. Oh my goodness, they can't get this done before the United States of America. So you can see that it became an important part of the cultural, technological, and ideological rivalry between the USSR and the United States during the Cold War. So, although Russia was the first to put a satellite into space, the United States was the first to land on the moon. So, that was a big one. You know, we're kind of, I think, some people would, you could do the research and argue, you know, whose Russia was first with the space race. The United States was first. It's a tie. It's whatever. It's what was going on. So, a little bit more about this Sputnik history. It was the first orbiting satellite. It started the space race. It was launched on October 4th, 1957. It took 98 minutes to orbit the Earth, and it was launched by the Soviet Union. A really good movie around kind of, I guess, space race issues that I think you guys might like to watch is called October Sky. If you haven't seen that before, it is based on a real person in the United States. So it's a neat movie about this kind of stuff. Okay, so before you see your turn, if you want to go to GoFormative, I screenshotted this. There, I do have a GoFormative about the space race of the Cold War. If you want to do it, it is not required, it is optional, but you will get some extra points if you choose to do this assignment on GoFormative. What is required is the next slide. So this is your turn. I want you to send me your work any way you desire. I want you to read over this quote several times and then tell me which side you think Truman supports and why you think he supports that side. So here's the quote. Communism holds that the world is so divided into opposing classes that war is inevitable. Democracy holds that free nations can settle differences justly and maintain lasting peace. So this is from President Harry S. Truman in his inaugural address, January 20th, 1949. Then the beginning of the arms race, and then, you know, about 10 years before the space race. So I'll read it one more time. You read over it several times, and then you will write in complete sentences or video yourself telling me which side, communism or democracy, that you think Truman supports and why you think he supports that side. Communism holds that the world is so divided into opposing classes that war is inevitable. Democracy holds that free nations can settle differences justly and maintain lasting peace. I look forward to your answers.